What if your career made you healthier instead of exhausted? What if you walked into your job thinking, I can't believe they pay me to do this? On this episode, we're going to take a deep dive into vocational health and discuss how work can give you joy and, more importantly, a deep sense of meaning. Welcome back to the Vitality Journey. So on this episode of the Vitality Journey, we're going to talk about vocational health. And we are, as you can see, there's not just Dimitri and me here in the studio. We have a guest, and she's not so much a guest. She's a partner with us, which we'll explain in a minute. This is Heather Fisher. Let me tell you a little bit about her. She's a leadership development consultant, executive coach, and business transformation expert with over 20 years of experience in corporate leadership. She's the founder and CEO of Thrive Vista Coaching. She specializes in equipping leaders and organizations with the tools to navigate growth, change, and conflict effectively. Heather's career spans senior leadership roles in strategy, transformation, operations, sales, and marketing within a Fortune 100 company, which is all wonderful. But I'm really thrilled that she's one of our Destiny Works coaches.
Boom.
Boom. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hey,
thanks.
Heather.
Yeah,
How
thanks
you
for
doing?
having me. I'm doing great. After that introduction, I'm doing, gosh, that's a great way to start. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, we're looking forward to this conversation and we wanted Heather here because she has a significant amount of obviously work done in the field of vocation and work relationships and strategy, and so we're gonna get to that in a little while. But let me tell you guys a story. Okay. You both know I've talked about Charlie over and over again. Charlie was my mentor. He passed away a couple of years ago, but I think I had coffee with him roughly once a month for 35 years or something like that.
Amazing.
But the reason why I wanted this part of his story that not everyone would know. Charlie, when it came to his vocation, he was as accomplished and as skilled as you can be. So he was a physician. He was not just a physician. He was a part of the faculty of IU medical school. Okay. So he had all that going on. On top of that, he served in the Peace Corps in Afghanistan, and he was part of a group of doctors who opened up a partnership in East Africa that provides comprehensive care to millions of people in East Africa. And it was on the forefront of the HIV/AIDS intervention in Africa. Wow. And I'm not positive about this, but I think at one point, one of the other doctors, or maybe the whole group, was nominated for the Nobel Prize in medicine. So I tell you all this to say that Charlie was highly effective in what he did in his vocation. But I'm also going to tell you there was no one more unassuming than Charlie. That's a vast understatement. If you would see the home he lived in, it was this small ranch. You would never picture a guy with a high-flying vocational guy like Charlie to be so unassuming. And I think one of the reasons why is despite his career accomplishments, internal medicine doctor, teacher, he was compelled by a calling that maybe, unless you knew him, you wouldn't see this calling. It was like the umbrella over everything in his life. He just loved mentoring young leaders. So everything he did, all his work in medicine was in the context of mentoring young leaders. And I was one of those young leaders he mentored. Here's a real quick story about Charlie. In his last days, I think was about 3 weeks before he died, he summoned me to his house because he wanted me to meet another, even younger leader that he had been mentoring. So when he started mentoring me, I was young, okay? So that was 35 years ago. I'm not any longer.
Sure.
So he'd been mentoring me for 35 years, but he had picked up another young man who was in his 20s. So he called, his name's Keith, called us together, and he basically gave Keith to me and said,
now you
here.
do it.
And I was like, oh, okay. So now I'm mentoring Keith. But as Keith and I awkwardly walked out of the house because this is the first time we've
You've been
met
assigned
him.
to each other
Yeah,
now.
we've been assigned. Do I know you? I don't know. So we walk out on the driveway, and another man pulls up, gets out of his car. He's older than me, which that means he's pretty darn old. And he walks up on the sidewalk, and we introduce ourselves to him. And I said, "Yeah, Charlie mentored me, and this is Keith, and Charlie mentored Keith." And this guy, who's 20 years older than me, said, "And Charlie mentored me." And found out that Charlie had been mentoring younger leaders for over 50 years.
Wow.
Now, I say that to say that he had a vocation, but what drove him was his calling.
Right.
And that calling was to mentor. Now, we're going to come back to that a little bit later, because I think, and at Destiny Works as coaches, we believe that a key to vocational health is understanding your calling. And what gives you meaning.
Now, if I may, just for our audience, what is vocation, right? How's that different than job versus career? Can you guys give some insight? Because I know sometimes the words get kind of thrown around. What does that even mean?
Here's my I'm curious to know what you think about this. Vocation to me is what you do with your life.
Okay.
All right. This is what I do with my life. Your career is what you do with your life. Your job is what you do with your life. But your calling is who you are as you do your life.
Okay.
That's why it's an essential part of vocation. Would you agree with that? Or
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And another way I could say that is, how do I spend my time? So for some people, it might look like a job where I go out, I go to maybe a building or virtually or whatever that looks like. For others in the stage of life they're in, they definitely have a vocation. They may not be getting paid for it.
Right.
They're spending time doing something. What is that something that they're doing?
So your vocation can be different than your job.
Yes.
They don't have to be, okay, because that's what I want to try to get to, right? They don't have to be one of those. It's great if they are.
I look at vocation as this is how I conduct my life. This is what's important to me and where I invest my life.
Sure.
And for some people, you get paid for it.
Right.
And some people
It's a hobby.
Now, most people get paid for what they do. So when it comes to vocational health, I think there's lots of, and Heather's here to help clear up get everything squared away for people in their vocational health. But the thing we'll wrap up this episode on is talking about the calling, because I think that's at the core. It defines meaning within the work environment. And the fact is, most people are not able to identify meaning in their vocation.
Yeah.
They're just not able to do that. And on top of that, vocational health, even as it relates to job and career, is very suspect. Listen to these stats. 2025 Gallup poll, and I really want to get your reaction to this. Only 21% of American workers are engaged in their jobs. How's engaged defined? How would you define engaged?
Engaged means I'm bought in. I'm excited. I believe in this. I want
wanna
to
be
show
here,
up.
right?
Yeah, I want to show up and do the thing, whatever the thing is.
Yeah, and only less than 1 out of 4 people are engaged in their work.
Now, if I may, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think we feel that though as consumers. Like your customer service, Instacart, the bananas are brown. Or when I go to a restaurant, they're curt or short with me. Like you can feel that disengagement through the service that I'm getting as a customer.
Well, that means we're all in trouble, because 62% of American workers say they're not engaged.
Oh man, that's terrible. That's terrible.
And one person defined not engaged as sleepwalking through their workday and putting time but not energy or passion into their work. 62%. Wow. And startlingly, 17% of American workers are actively disengaged, meaning they're not just unhappy, but actively acting out their unhappiness, undermining the work of their engaged coworkers.
Almost undoing their job, right? You're unjobbing your job.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and I found this interesting quote from a guy named Michael Marmot, who's a professor at the Institute of Health Equity in London. And he talked about here's how he described his patients or his clients. They have to endure work that is monotonous, boring, and soul-destroying, where they die a little when they come to work each day because their work touches no part of them that is them. Their work touches no part of them that is them.
Yeah.
So you've spent a lot of time helping organizations, and one in particular, for deal with this, how creating the right kind of a vocational environment for people to work in.
Yeah.
When an organization, a Fortune 100 company, realizes these are the stats, what do they do, or what should they do?
Yeah. Before I answer that, I would love for people that are listening to this to ask yourself how you feel in your body right now when you hear that.
Yeah.
Like as you're just
Those
saying
stats,
those
yeah.
stats
Yeah.
and you're listening, how does that feel in your body?
Right.
Do you go, oh, I'm part of that number?
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Because I think this awareness part, when you read that to us, you know, and maybe we're a little bit sometimes just inundated with numbers.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you? So I think that's the first thing I would call out is you're sharing these really recent 2025 stats.
Yes.
Where do you fall?
Are you in the 21% that's engaged? Are you in the 17% that are sabotaging everyone else?
Right.
Or are you in the 62% of meh?
Right.
Yeah.
Which means you're the customer that gets brown bananas delivered to you.
Yeah.
Because no one takes the time to look at them, right?
So this could be the first time, Dave, as you're reading that, that someone's pausing to listen to this and realizing, oh, I'm actually in this particular part of that. And I think and we'll talk later about assessment and awareness and just knowing where you're at, which is the first step. But I would just encourage, as we're talking about that, take a minute and ask yourself, where are you and how are you feeling to that?
Good word.
So good.
And keep listening, because we're going to solve all of that. We're going to get you.
Heather's got all the answers.
That's why she's here.
Right.
Yeah. So, but let me ask Heather,
Yeah.
why such a small percentage of people are engaged in their work? Why is that?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I see a couple things, and I coach a lot of people that I would say identify with being in the meh.
Yeah.
Just going to work and doing my thing and just trying to punch the clock and come home. And I see a couple things. One is more internal. What I mean by that, we have to look inward to figure that question out, which is, who am I and what are my values? So I say values are like my deeply held beliefs.
Okay.
The thing that it's me. And so when I go into a job or I show up and spend my time in something, how well or not does it align to my values?
Now,
Yeah.
do people think, do people think that way?
No.
Okay.
Not
That's where you're
generally.
going. That's where you're going with
That's
this.
where I'm going with this. And so typically, if I'm going in and I'm doing some sort of work and I'm feeling meh, I might not know why I'm feeling meh. I may even on the outside look like I should be happy. I may be making decent money.
Yeah.
I may have some sort of prestige, a title, whatever that looks like. So why do I still feel meh? Sometimes we don't think of that. We need someone to help us think of that. It's because the very thing we're doing doesn't actually align to the values that we hold.
Interesting.
Right.
So that's one thing I see.
Okay. Yeah, that's one.
The second thing I see is outside of yourself, what are the conditions that you're working in? What does that mean? So if I show up to a job where I report to someone who maybe isn't the best manager, supervisor, leader, they don't really know who I am, they don't know what my strengths are, they haven't taken the time, this word individualization, understanding who you are. What do you bring to the table? What are your strengths? When I'm a good leader, I do that. But we have a lot of leaders that might not have that skill.
Yeah.
They might not know. And suddenly I'm showing up every day feeling like you don't know me. You don't know what my strengths are.
Right.
You don't really care about the work that I'm doing, because if you knew me well, you'd know that there's a different piece of work I could do better with. And so I see a mix of internally or inwardly looking at what are your values, how does it align? And then what are the conditions around me? Am I in a culture or an environment where people are learning, they're growing, there's a path for development? Because if I show up and don't have that every day and I just feel stagnant over time, I feel meh.
And I'm just adjacent to that, which brings me to a question around, are the systems themselves curated and built to support that, right? When you think about, and you talked about like the redundancy, it kind of kills human spirit, right?
Yeah.
I think about technology and how I can implement AI and robotics to reduce the human labor, and so that we can put that human on higher value tasks, right? Higher value decision outputs, right?
Yeah.
Do the corporate environments and systems support that? I mean, it's kind of like, even if we could accomplish having a good manager and I'm aligned with my job, if the structure itself doesn't promote, the person to be better or have a spirit aligned work, is that a factor?
I think it's definitely a factor. And when we look at organizations, typically there's a lot of emphasis on results and performance, which makes sense to me, right? We have to have good results. There's a lot of emphasis on performance. However, I think the system, if you look at the whole of it, is missing a bit. Who's creating those results?
Right.
Where does the performance come from? That's the people. And when we don't focus as much as we do on the results and performance on the people, suddenly we're in a gap.
And one of the great ironies is that if you ask the average, my opinion, if you ask the average corporate leader, what's your greatest resource, what would they say? Oh, our people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But the fact is, what I was going to ask, based on what Dimitri was talking about, do organizations think about creating, what does the average organization think about creating the system that would build up the people so that their vocational health is better?
Right.
Do they do that?
I think some do. I think some do. And I work with a lot of clients whose organizations are doing just that.
Okay.
There's just as many and probably more if you look at the statistics.
The statistics would.
Right? The statistics are telling us probably not. And in my experience, it's the first thing that can get cut, right? Times are tough.
Yeah.
We're not meeting the results that we want. We need to cut things like growth and development because those are a nice to have. We don't have time for that. We don't have time for the people and to understand them. We need them just to do more of the thing.
Right. What were you going to say?
I said, man, I mean, it's almost disenfranchising, right? Like, how do you just stamp widgets every day and all they care about is you doing 100 a day, not the person behind the number.
Yeah.
Right. But every system is almost set up like that. You almost can't not, right? How do you get atop that?
I think it's believing. And I was telling Dave, I met with a client just this morning who was talking about his journey in leadership development. And he said,
with you?
Yeah, with me.
Okay.
It was our coaching session. And he said, Heather, the culture starts at the top and that's with me.
He's the CEO?
He is a division president.
Okay.
So he's the president of his division of a larger corporation. If you don't have that mindset at the top, if someone doesn't believe that has the power in the organization to do what we're talking about, it probably won't happen.
Yeah. Okay. So there are people listening or watching going, yeah, that's my company.
Right.
They don't seem to care, which, by the way, this is an adjacent question, but 3 out of 4 American employees say that their employer does not care about their well-being. That's startling, that they have the sense that you don't really give a rip about any part of me.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that one. We'll come back. So let's say somebody's listening, they're paying attention, they're going, yeah, I am in the 62%, or yeah, I'm in the 17%.
Yeah.
How do we, if they go, if let's say they're in the 62%, they want to improve. They want their work, how does Marmot say it? They want a part of my work at least to touch who I am. What would you say to those people?
Well, you asked me something exactly that feeds into this earlier. You said, do most people know what their values are?
Yeah.
Do they already know this? And I said, no, not usually. I would say this is a piece of work that individuals can do outside of their organization. I walk people through that. I do sessions with that to identify your values, but you could start there.
Oh, okay, we're listening.
Okay.
Right. And action.
And tell us how to do that, Heather.
Step 1 is
in brief, how do you help a person figure out their values?
Yeah, an easy way to do it that is not intimidating, because if you throw a list of 50 words in front of someone and say, what's the 5 that stick out to you?
Right.
That's
Depends on my mood.
Yeah, it's probably not going to. What I love to ask someone is, tell me about your best day. You're getting up tomorrow. It's going to be like your most favorite things the whole day. What does that sound like? And then I just listen. And I'm listening to how they choose to spend their time. What do they think makes the cut? for their best day. And I'm just quietly taking notes, listening for themes.
Yeah.
You could do this with someone in your life. You could ask them, hey, could we sit down together? Do you have someone in your community that you could talk to? A spouse or a best friend could also probably help you identify what they see in you, which are words you use, Dave.
Yep, right.
What they see in you and what's important to you. You could start with those things. This is maybe an easy way just to start identifying what are my values.
So what is a good day to you?
Yeah,
Like what are,
it's a good day.
when somebody, I'm just curious, when you coach people that way, what are some of the things they say that you then translate into, well, that's a value.
I'm listening one for how they choose to spend their time and who they spend it with.
Okay.
So if they say, oh, I get up, I pour myself a cup of coffee, I take some time to do some journaling. Okay, I'm starting to pick up on some things that may be of value to them.
Okay.
Whereas someone else might say, I get up, I immediately get out the door, I'm going to have a 2-hour workout today. Okay, I'm listening for that.
Okay.
So I'm just listening to what it is they're saying that they're doing and who they're spending time with.
So the average person can do this. It'd be great
Yes.
to have a coach
Right.
like Heather Fisher. She'd
Right. Shameless plug, right?
be a great, but they could do this on their own.
Absolutely.
So it's like a values clarification exercise.
It's really, I think it's foundational. When I'm talking with people who say, I feel disconnected, I just feel meh, I'm not sure what am I even doing here?
Yeah.
Is there any value in this? I ask them, well, what is important to you? What are your values? And usually it's the blank stare.
Right.
I don't know what they are.
Yeah.
It's a great way to start. And yes, you can do it on your own.
Okay.
And then so how do you translate that? And this is where you come in, right? Because I may give you a list. We may come to a list of values that don't align with my daily job. I work at a grocery store, packing groceries every day. And my values are, I love plants.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
What's the translation? Do I quit my job? Do I work at the floral department inside the supermarket? Like how to translate it into like, I gotta get happy. I want to be happy with
I think the first step when someone then has sort of their values list and then we can look at how you're spending your time, you start to make that connection. Are you spending 95% of your time doing something that doesn't align to these values that we've identified? And then it's the word intentional. Because if we don't know something, if we're not even aware of it, we can't start to make intentional switches.
Right.
And I'm not suggesting you radically change everything or you have to quit your job. I'm rather saying, how can you be intentional to, here's my value, I'm doing nothing to honor that value. What would it look like to make 10 minutes a day where I honor that value? What would that look like?
Interesting. Do you, when you help a person figure out their values that they carry into their work, do you encourage them to have that conversation with their supervisor?
I can't, people do. Some people aren't comfortable with that. And I never start with that because if
It's
you're
intimidating.
it's
right?
intimidating.
Yeah.
And also you have to try it on a little bit and get comfortable with it before you're comfortable speaking to others about it. So I like to have conversation with them, encourage them to talk to a spouse, to a friend, a safe community first. And then once they gain some clarity and confidence, then we can talk about having a conversation.
Sounds like the first step is know yourself.
Starts with you.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's take a minute and check in. Ever catch yourself wondering, why am I here? What's my real purpose? At Destiny Works, we help you discover exactly that and bring it to life. Through personal coaching, group experiences, or our vitality journey, you'll explore what makes you thrive and create a life full of clarity, energy, and impact. Are you ready to step into your purpose and live fully? Head over to destiny-works.com and start your journey today. Now, back to the conversation.
All right. So that's key.
Right.
Other keys to making that work relationship much more healthy, and
Yeah.
what would you?
I think we just talked about the inward part, right? So
Yeah.
I talked about two things earlier, the inward part, which is knowing myself, knowing what my values are. And then I talked about these conditions. There are going to be some conditions at your work environment that you can't change. Maybe you can't change your manager, your supervisor. So what are those ways that you can change? Again, going back to what you know to be strengths. Maybe you're someone that's really, really good at planning something, but yet you're stuck doing all the spreadsheet stuff and you actually want to do something that's more experiential. What would that conversation sound like if you went to your manager who maybe didn't seek you out and learn about you, but you went to them and said, hey, I have an idea. I'd really like to do this thing.
Okay.
So looking for those opportunities to leverage your strengths, this can be difficult if you're in the meh. I just want to name that.
Sure.
Now we're saying, I already feel kind of meh and you want me to go do something different.
Yeah.
The mindset that you need to come in with is that I'm trying to honor my strengths and my values by bringing that to my workplace.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that whole approach, the vitality journey depends on all the health factors, depending on you saying, I'm not just going to sit around.
Yeah.
I've got to make some decisions here
Right.
about my life. And you're saying there are some decisions walking into your work environment, your vocational health. You can't, nobody's going to fix this for you.
Right.
No, and that's not an easy message. And sometimes, as we're talking through that, a client will get the aha. And one woman a few weeks ago said, wait, I can change this?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. And it has to be an intentional
Starts with you.
decision to do so.
In the same way that you got to do a few push-ups, in the same way you got to eat less calories, in the same way you got to be an illuminator instead of a diminisher in relationships.
Right.
Yeah, it starts with you inside.
Right.
Interesting.
So let me ask you this. Some of our audience are business owners, right?
Yeah.
Or they work in high positions, right? Or have, high value roles inside of an organization. If they're hearing this, knowing that 67% of their people don't want to be there, or 12% are doing it on purpose to undo what they're doing. If I'm a manager or owner of a company, what can I start thinking about so that my people don't feel that way?
I think a simple question you could start asking yourself is, how much energy, focus do I spend on results and performance versus the energy and focus I spend on people?
Your people.
Yeah. When you think about when you get on a town hall, this is a great example. When you get on a town hall, quarterly update, some sort of meeting, you're the head, you're the business owner, you're leading. Where do you spend your time? My guess is you spend a lot of it on results and performance.
It's all the metrics.
Which there's nothing wrong with, I just want to say. Don't come at me for, results and performance is great.
Right.
My consideration is, are you also spending time on your people? Do you know who your people are? Do you know the individualization of each of them, the value they bring, the strengths they have? And then when you become a leader who knows that about each individual, you can leverage that team in an entirely different way, which will drive your performance.
And this goes back to something you said. The Enneagram has been a great tool to do that. Organizationally, right? To deploy that inside and say, okay, now I see how my people think and operate, right?
Yeah, that's one way. Absolutely.
Even I read an interesting book in another episode. In relational health, we're talking about even the 5 love languages.
Yeah.
But there's a book, The 5 Love Languages of the Workplace. And it is assuming that the people who work for you or with you have a different language of appreciation. It's not so much about a love, it's about appreciation.
Yeah.
Right.
Like some people, they want you to shake their hand. That says the world to them. Some people need you to spend a little time with them. And on the five languages of appreciation in the workplace are crucial. I was sitting here thinking too, it's not just business owners, it's like team leaders of all kinds.
Right.
Everyone.
Yeah, if you're leading a team of 3 or you're leading a team of 5, there are ways to approach that will take a person from maybe the 62% to the 21%. Matter of fact, I'm sitting there thinking, what if you approached your team thinking, I'm going to get everyone in the 20, I'm going to raise that level.
Right.
That's my goal.
Right. And, it gets me thinking like, man, I'm just a process person. If I'm a business owner or leader, how do I fix this? Right? The systems, because it's the system itself that makes the employee unhappy, right? Because this is universal. It doesn't matter if you own a lawn care business.
No,
or
it doesn't matter.
Business, it's agnostic to industry and vertical.
Yeah.
There's something wrong in the employment system, the structure and framework itself. I've always imagined like, man, if I were a car manufacturer, I would make sure every one of my employees had my car. Why would you not? To give them the car. And now it's for brand equity, for brand placement. We take care of our people. Remember the one CEO that reduced his salary so everyone, I think, made like $75K a year?
Oh, yes.
Brilliant. And employee sat, no one's quitting that job, right? When you offer free daycare or when you provide free lunch, it could be the smallest things. So systematically, I guess I'm asking, what is it that we need to think about and adjust? Because it's not just a great leader. It's like the whole system's broken. I mean, I can be a great leader inside my BU, but man, my company still has a crappy PTO. We have how to fix that, how to undo that system.
Yeah, I think the word that comes to my mind when you speak about that is systemic. So I can be a great leader at the top, which I think is a great start, like the client I had this morning. And what am I doing to grow and develop everyone in the organization so that the mindset is open to be able to consider what we're talking about? Because when I think about working, leading, being an employee, there's the being and the doing. I need to do things, right?
Right.
But if my being, my mindset isn't open or available or able to consider other things, none of this is going to land.
Right. What do they say? Feet over here, heart over there. Feet one room, heart in another.
Yeah.
Let me switch gears here. Vocational health has to be dependent on team relationships, correct?
Yeah. I mean,
That's obvious, right?
Yeah,
That's obvious.
Important.
So relationship with supervisors, relationship with coworkers, any ideas, basic ideas on how to improve working relationships?
I mean, I think there's a phrase, it's not new. I think it's just become a little more evident in the last maybe couple years, this psychological safety word or phrase. What does that mean? It means I can show up to work with my whole self. We always talk about work and life and the difference. And the reality is we're a whole person wherever we go, whether we're at home or whether we're at work. So building relationships with a team, with others, is being able to show up, know who you are, know what's important, feel like you can be seen and heard. This is a big one around lack of engagement too. If people don't feel like, if I'm sitting at the table with you, that's not enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough to have a seat at the table. I need to know that I can say something and you will hear me.
Right.
And same, I need to be able to listen to you and hear you. So it's making sure that you have a space or conditions, the word I use is conditions, that allow everyone to feel like they can show up, have a voice, be seen and heard. Doesn't mean every idea you say gets done, but it's considered, talked about, and valued.
So you can, and that's interesting. That's psychological, creating psychological safety.
Yeah.
It's huge. And that's bigger than just like making everyone go to the corporate picnic or doing the trust fall exercise. You're talking about a little more work than that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
Fascinating.
That's, yeah. And now I'm sure there's someone listening going, I don't feel very psychologically safe where I work because no one sees anything in me.
Or I'm always worried about getting laid off next quarter.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow. So another question. This is the perennial one. It's been around for decades, work-life balance.
Yeah.
I've heard people take that on. There's no such thing as work-life balance. And there are people, it's everything. You have a take on that?
Yeah, I do think there's such a reaction to the word, like work-life balance. Here's what I know for myself as someone who has had a spouse and myself who've worked and had kids. And there are seasons where there's going to be more time spent in certain areas than others.
Right.
And I think that's natural. If you zoom out and look at the macro view of your life and just consider, if I look at mine, there was a time where I'm sure I was really heavily weighted on the work part. And then maybe little kids, that looked a little different.
Sure.
And now my kids are older, so maybe it looks different again. And so I think just this willingness or openness to be okay, and it goes back to that word intentional, and a lot of stuff does. Where am I at right now?
Yeah.
What is needed? And where I see people get into trouble is if you stay, there is no ebb and flow. It's either maxed out on both,
Yep.
or you stay in one way past a season that doesn't allow you to give attention to the other properly.
So again, this sounds like, all right, something we have to do then is be aware, what season am I in?
Yeah.
Maybe give myself some grace.
100%. I mean, I talk to people who have little kids and they need to miss a day of work because they're sick and they're beating themselves up. I can't believe it. Like, this is natural. This is normal. And that's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are humans and
Right.
it is okay. You are a parent and you have a job.
Yeah. So giving yourself some grace. And then it would seem to be, especially if you're in a marital relationship, there needs to be a conversation with your spouse about the seasons you're in.
Right.
Oh yeah, communication.
That'd be helpful.
That's really, really helpful. And I would say there's a bigger conversation of the season I'm in. And then there's that day to day. And I'll tell you what my husband and I used to do. We don't do this anymore, but we're in a different season. Our kids are older, so life looks different. We used to come in the evening from our jobs, picking up the kids from daycare, and immediately share with each other where we were at from a scale of 1 to 10. I'm coming in at a 4 today.
That's all I got.
And my husband's like, okay, I can dial it up to a 7. Fantastic. Or if we both come in and we're like, we're coming in at a 2 today, let's order pizza.
Right.
Right? It's that immediate, like,
Right.
not judging you, not doing anything except for, let me just share with you where I'm at. How do we tackle this together? And just that 5 seconds of communication can set the night in a totally different direction.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me press that.
Okay.
Can you do that with the people you work with? Or is that not psychologically safe, or is it appropriate? I mean, obviously we have to get stuff done.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
But I'm not feeling well at all, or I just had a major disagreement with my daughter or something like that. Can you, within reason, can you adopt that into the work relationships?
I mean, I would say in a healthy work environment where the conditions are such that we believe that you're a whole person, and when you come to work, we have expectations. Here's what we need your performance to be, and we care about you as a person. That fits.
Right.
It may look a little different
Yeah.
than what I just described. It may sound like, hey,
I'm just picturing people coming
in.
to.
That's all I got. So
tell
I'm just not going to be able to
Can
answer the phone
somebody?
today. Yeah.
I can't do this.
I can't take out the
I
trash right now.
hesitate to say you should try that at work.
No, and I don't want to recommend that.
Right,
but
right, right.
I just was thinking out loud.
But you're
What if everyone came in as a 1? That's then
that's
you
tough.
can't do it.
That's tough.
Let's go get drinks.
Yeah, let's just call off the day.
But the point is, if you think about, and as I'm thinking through, and maybe you guys have examples too of like seasons of my life, for sure, when my kids were really little in daycare, always getting a cold, always getting like, my coworkers knew that. And so if I'd come in and be like, gosh, I didn't sleep last night because my daughter was up, I think that's pretty natural and normal, and I felt comfortable to do that. However, I recognize not everybody feels that too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that preface could feel good as having my coworker share that. Because like to see you just not performing and I'm working harder than you, that's going to agitate me, right?
Yeah.
But if you came in and was like, listen, A, B, C, D, F, G, I'm like, okay. I mean, it gives me context.
It does. We also have to realize not everyone feels comfortable sharing their personal space at work.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And we recognize,
and it wouldn't be appropriate.
we recognize from a relationship perspective that you have varying levels of relationship. You might have someone with very high trust in your work relationship community. You might have someone that you haven't built trust with yet. So that level of information is going to look different. But the takeaway here is that, from that work-life balance or whatever word we want to use is ebbs and flows of that. But the word I always come back to is it intentional?
Yeah.
Because where I see people get into sort of shaky ground is it's not intentional. You're swept up and you find yourself in a space and you're coming into maybe burnout, or you don't feel like you're doing anything well, right? Have you ever thought that? Like, I'm failing everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a pause and look at, is this how you want to spend your time? Is this being intentional?
Yeah.
So back to the 12%. It was a 12% that unjob their jobs.
17, I think.
17%
Yeah.
are actively disengaged.
Man, so for those guys that are just not doing a good job, right? And I think about truck drivers, right? They have to get a load to a particular spot at a certain time. But the dock workers, they take their time unloading the truck. He can't leave until you unload his truck. And so if you're having a bad day or whatnot and so on, there's a daisy chain of events that cascade from your lack of connectivity to your job. That's just a very trite example. And this happens in healthcare. This happens in many, many codependent, right, roles. For the person that's just being there and kind of sabotaging their job, what would you say to them, right? For me, I'm just being crass and trite. I'm like, get out the way, quit, do something different, because you're making my life and everyone else is miserable. Customers that have to consume your service, your coworkers that have to work with you, that's miserable. Like, go do something else. outside from them hearing that, what would you say? What can they do to better perform and be in that space?
Yeah, I think there's some things that maybe you could do yourself. And then I would also say this is a great opportunity to talk about leadership. When I think about the 17%, as I think about what I've seen, oftentimes it's people that have poor conditions or work experience because they're not having courageous conversations, maybe themselves. Maybe they're not having a courageous conversation. And I think there's a way you can have that conversation and still do it tactfully, but be assertive. And then I would say leadership skills is something I see. It's really difficult for a leader to step into a very courageous conversation if they've never been given the skills to do so.
That's right.
And so the 17%, oftentimes what I see is because you're on a team where clearly the person sitting next to you is not doing a good job. They've been getting away with it. The manager hasn't saying anything because they are afraid to say something. They don't know how to have that conversation. So a lot of this, from my view, goes back to having the skill individually and especially as a leader to tackle those things so that you don't build a culture that becomes toxic, which is what happens when you get that amount of people disengaged.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's it.
Let's shift gears and let's talk about meaning. Okay. This is really important to me. This is what Destiny Works was founded on, was the idea that there is something about you that is a calling and a destiny. And when a person does not know how to figure out the thing that moves them the most, the thing that they're put on this earth to do, and they cannot figure out how that relates to their work, there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
And they struggle because they don't know how to make sense of something that moves me so deeply.
Right.
And yet every day I'm not doing anything that moves me deeply. So can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Here's a quote I love, Dallas Willard. "You were built to count as water is made to run downhill. You were placed in a context to count in ways that no one else does. That is your destiny." And I love that quote because it implies, and this is my bias, that there were unseen hands that formed you as you are. I believe that's God. And I know you two guys would be in that same place. But it also implies that this thing about you, this calling on your life, sets you apart from everybody else. And this calling, I believe, is the most ancient thing about you. It existed before you did. It existed before your body did, before your personality did. Your calling existed. So it's the most ancient thing about you. And your calling is the most eternal thing about you, because when you operate in your calling, you leave a legacy behind you that goes on for generations. So it's ancient and eternal, which makes it pretty important.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So I know, obviously, the three of us, and individually and together, we've talked about our callings. Dimitri, do you have an idea what your calling is?
I do. I do.
You say it out loud?
Yeah, reverse bus. Yeah, I think it's, this theme of serving people that are underserved is something I'm highly attracted to. And the injustices there that surround that, to reconcile those. Dave will tell you, it fired, man, I'm fired up.
Yeah.
I cannot eat, don't matter. I have to address it. Every person we walk past that we don't help or support is just, it's blasphemy.
Yeah.
It is incorrect. That's for me, but that's how I'm built. Other people aren't built that way. They're built to see and respond to other things. And so,
and I love how you leverage that calling into, you want to stop the friction that are holding people back from the kind of life that you want to help reduce that friction.
That's right. And so systematically speaking, I've tried to build a infrastructure, a system to redesign and just to move people through social services in a frictionless way, or with less friction. Because the individual, and this is why I applaud you guys, which is why I'm attracted to Destiny Works. Is like, man, individually this is great, but systematically, okay, I'm great. I got the books, I do the thing, I got the routine, I got my notebook, but man, the system, man, I'm still throttled, right?
Yeah.
By the system. And so I gotta put a wrench in those gears. We gotta break something. And so I'm breaking it.
I see the passion coming out.
Oh yeah. Yeah. See, when we talk about our calling, the first group of guys that I ever walked through the process of figuring out their calling were 6 former NFL players. They played for Indianapolis Colts, and wonderful conversation with these guys. But our conversations, when they were retiring from football, so trying to figure out, what is my calling now?
Yeah.
And it was emotional.
Yeah.
Some of these guys were in tears, and these were big guys crying. Because calling is emotional. What's your calling?
Yeah. So my calling is I want to help others grow and thrive. That's the short of it.
That's the short of it.
And then there's the entry points, or how do I do that?
Yeah.
And the way I do that, because, and you talk about this, is we can have the same calling in the sense that someone else can hear me say, I want to help people grow and thrive. And they're like, oh, me too.
Right.
But the way I do that is unique to me. And the way I do that is by what it is I'm doing now,
Yep.
by coaching other people,
Yep.
helping them see something in themselves that maybe they don't even
Yep.
know what it is, understanding where they want to go, and then helping them
Yeah.
Yeah.
kind of
That's why-
systematically get there.
When I talk about Charlie at the beginning, he was a doctor, but his calling, the thing that drove him, that he took all his skills and he turned it into mentoring other. His favorite thing, he would love to have med students over to his house and feed him breakfast and do a Bible study with them. He just lived for that because his calling was mentoring, and he did that within the context of being a physician.
Yeah. Can I just say something? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. The beautiful thing about even just our callings as they are presented here is mine is more focused on reducing friction and acquisition around Maslow's hierarchy. Here's a sandwich, here's some socks, here's some dry shoes, right? But then after that, okay, you're not hungry and you're not on the street anymore and you're warm, but like, now what do I do with myself?
Yeah.
My identity is a homeless person or a poor person. That's not true. Now we hand them off to you guys, right?
Yeah.
And so this kind of continuum of care, right? How our callings are codependent.
Yeah.
And if we can live in our callings, the community wellness factor increases
great.
exponentially, right? I'm doing here's your sandwich, here's your dry socks. Now you're like, man, here's how you feel better as a person.
Yeah.
Here's how you
Here's how you
execute,
grow.
right? Like,
Yeah.
man, now you have a whole person. That whole person
Yeah.
starts to reemerge again.
Yeah.
Man, so I just wanted,
Yeah. So I want to take off on that because two of you have done something with your calling. This is what I wanted people to hear. There are 3 ways that your vocation can intersect with your calling.
Yeah.
First of all, your calling and your job or career can be unrelated.
right.
We both know all 3 of us know somebody who runs a software company. He, like Charlie, is a mentor, though. That's what he loves to do. He wants to be at coffee shops and lunch and meeting with somebody, but he's got a career. He was running the software company, and that's okay with him. The upside is his calling is financed. The downside is he likes to spend more time in his calling, but he's got this company to run. But it can be unrelated. So a person could be listening to this going, I don't know that my calling's related to my job. That's okay.
That's okay, right.
But that should make it should make your job better for you, because now your job doesn't have to fulfill that for you.
That's right.
You have the calling.
Right.
Right. So and it can be separate from your job. So your job and career, your career and your calling can be unrelated. Your career and calling could be integrated, like you, where you're a coach,
Yes.
but your calling is to see people thrive.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You have integrated your calling.
That's right.
With
Because I do that in other ways outside of coaching
Absolutely.
that is more on the personal side,
Right.
maybe through leading small groups at church or something, right? So there's many ways. I've just integrated it into what I do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Dimitri, what you've done with yours is you've taken your calling and made it identical to your career.
Yeah.
So you've taken this calling and you've actually created a career, so to speak,
Right.
around your calling.
Right.
So yours is identical. So when a person listening to this realize your calling can be any of those 3.
Right. And still be viable.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, viable. I'm still testing the viability part. Yeah, still
Yeah.
working on.
Yeah.
Because and to that end, I mean, there's real life, right? It's like the electric bill still due, right? I still got to get groceries, and sometimes that can slow down, throttle, change, edit what that looks like when you execute it day to day.
So we're going to have to wrap this up, but I want to say this to our listeners. Destiny Works has at its core, our core coaching we offer, in addition to the Vitality Journey, is what we call the Calling Quilt, We do it one-on-one. We do it in a workshop format. And if you'd like to know, those of you who are listening or following along with us, and you'd like to know what my calling is, what your calling is, and is it unrelated, integrated, or identical with your career? Heather or I would be happy, along with Tawana and Micah and Olivia, our Destiny Works coaches, to walk you through that through our Destiny Works coaching. We'd love to do that for you.
And what an experience. I mean, I've been through it. It changed. You are forever changed after that experience. To see your life pictorialized and see threads throughout that. And then from that thread, you can say, oh, this is who and what I am.
Yeah.
And now you can create a new garment with this shiny thread you have.
Yeah.
That is magic. Just knowing that within itself. Even if you don't do it like that, just knowing that is like, wow, there's an empowerment there.
Yeah.
You're one of the best encouragers I know. You have this encouraging vibe. So you want to give a last word of encouragement to somebody who's going, you know what? I want my vocational health. I want to thrive in my vocational health. Last words, and then I'll offer a blessing to everyone.
Yeah. Thank you for that, by the way. My encouragement to you is that most people don't even take the time to have awareness that something is going on that they wish they could change or do differently. So you've already taken the first step. So my encouragement is hold on to that awareness and then listen to this again. Pick one thing that we talked about today and just start reflecting on it. And then this word intentional, what do you want to do with that? One small thing. Don't go crazy. Just pick one small thing and then pick another small thing. That's my encouragement.
Awesome. And let me send us out with this. This is from David Brooks. I quote him all the time, but he's got another book called The Second Mountain. And I've created a blessing based on something he said in the book.
Nice.
May you radiate joy. May you glow with an inner light. May you know why you were put on this earth and derive a deep satisfaction from doing what you have been called to do. Life will not be easy for you, but may you have a serenity about you that comes from your deep and settled resolve. And we'll see you next time on the Vitality Journey.